This conference will now be recorded.
You forcefully close the tab. So means in between the downloading itself, you have closed means. So it was a forcefully you have. So then you are sending a reset flag, reset flag. So then you are sending a packet. That packet looks like you're sending to the server. Okay, that flag should be set to be 1 and all other remaining 0, 0. This is when you real time, when you capture the real time packet. So this flag is set to be 1 on all others 0. Okay, and the next one will be IP address. So what is the IP address? So what is the IP address? So every system have an IP address, right? Internet protocol address. Okay, it's a logical representation of. It's a logical representation of. It's actually the logical representation. And okay. So any of the device, if you see any of the device can be identified in a network. So based on a IP address. So you have n number of systems, okay, in a network. So every device can be identified. Every device can be identified based on a IP. So if you want to communicate any of the device in the network, so you need a, and even with the internet, if you want to communicate in internet, you must have a IP address. You must have a IP address to communicate anything. So even my system, right now I'm connected to my internet. So my system having a IP, my system having an IP address. Okay, this is my system IP address, and this is my router IP address. I'm using ACT Wi-Fi router. So this is the ACT Wi-Fi router. Okay, this is my private IP address. So and if you want to see my public IP, so I'll go to. So this is my public IP. Okay, I can search where exactly my IP is. See, this is the broadband service I'm using, and the location will be Bangalore. So this is the public facing IP. So we have actually the two IP addresses. So we have a this is the private side. So and when you're trying to go internet, let's say here I'm using a Wi-Fi router. Okay, in my router, so I have a mobile, I have a laptop, and I'm using another two three of my friends laptops, and they are using a mobile phone as well. All are connected to internet. Okay, so having a every device, so this one having a one IP address called as 192 dot, what is my IP? 192.168.0.104. 104. This is a another 0. 0.3, and this one is a 0.2. So, and this is a default router. This is a router. Router is always start with a 0 dot, last is a 1. It will be a last will be a 1. When it is going to the internet, so it will carry the IP address of yours will be, when you are sending a request, when you are trying to access anything, it will go as a public IP, not your private IP. What is my public IP? This is my public IP. Okay. So internet, Google will be thinking as our server IP is 193.x.x something. Okay. So, and the Google reply also 103.x.x. And the router, once the router receives, the router will be sending to my particular host. Got it? We'll tell you more about this. So first is IP addresses for to identification of any device in the network, and also so in order to communicate any of the device in the internet, not in the network, within the network. So let's say I am connecting my computer and another computer using a one LAN cable, one single LAN cable. So here I don't need IP address because this is not connected to the internet. So I am using a single LAN cable and I am connecting here. There is no IP address is required. Correct? We have a MAC address concept will be there. So we'll discuss that as well. So when the IP address is needed, when you are connecting to the internet, and we wanted to access something from the servers, so you must need a one IP address. Internet protocol, the name itself is telling internet protocol. So this IP address will be helpful when the Google server identify your device based on an IP address. So based on IP address, where exactly you are located, on which network you are located, will be identified based on an IP address. So the first one is to identify where you are in the network and to communicate. So that's the reason. It's an identity of any of the system. So where exactly the system is. So that's a IP address. So we have a different classes of IP address. So before that, so we have two different versions of IP address. So the first one is IPv4. IPv4. So it's and the next one is IPv6. The IPv4 represented in 4 octaves. Totally, will be represented in 4 octaves, means 32 bits. So 4 octaves means 4 octet means each octet will be how many bits? 8 bits. Correct. One octet is equal to 8 bits. Now I am representing in 4 octets. So 4 means each one is 8 means how many bits? So 32 bits. So one IP address we are represented with a 32 bits. Okay. How? So 4 octets. Let's say 0.0.0.0 example. So each octet is 8 bits, means 0000000. Again, this one 00000 8 bits, and again this is a 8 bits. Again this is a 8 bits. Totally 32 bits representation. So one IP can be represented in a 32 bits and 4 octets. Got it? Any doubts? Any confusion here? Very simple. 4 octets. Each octet is 8 bits. So we have a 4 means 4 into 8, 32. So 32 bits representation. So right now IPv6 we don't have. We were not using IPv6, but yeah, IP6 v6 means it is a representation of 6 octets. Okay. So right now we were we don't have any IPv6 technology. So we will be only focusing on IPv4. So hope you understand. So totally 2 power. See, this is a 0 dot. This is 8 bits representation, right? Each octet. So each octet, let's say each octet 0.0 means each octet will be each octet will be 8 bits representation, means 2 power 8. So 2 power 8, 2 power 8, 2 power 8 means how? What is the 2 power 8? 256. Got it? 256. 256. So we can write 2 power 8 means 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 to 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 combination. How many combinations we can write? Totally 256 combinations we can write. Start from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, like that. See, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So this is how we can represent. So totally, how many possibilities of IP address we can represent? So here 0 to 256. Got it? So 2 power 8 means 256. Any confusion again here?
No.
Okay. Now we can write a IP addresses from where to where? 0.0.0.0.2. Okay. 256 means it's already started at 0 means where we can end 255, right? If we start from 1, we can write a 256, but it is start from 0 means 255.255.255. Got it? Why we are writing 255? Because each octet is 8 bits. 8 bits means 2 power 8 combinations we can 2 power 8 combinations we can write. So 0 to 255.255. So from this range, from here to here, we have a there are this many possibilities of IP addresses are there. So we have a classes. We will be dividing this range. We will be dividing this range into 5 classes. 5 classes. The first class will be start from 0 to 127. Got it? The next one will be 128 to 191. That is this is a class A, this is a class B. So the next class start from 192 to 23. So this is the these are the major classes we will be using in our environment. After that, the class D and class E will be using for class D for multicasting. So that start from 224 to 239, and this is the class D, and 240 to 255. That will be reserved for some other applications. It has been reserved. Okay. Any questions here? So we can write in such a way. If you have any questions, if you have any confusions here, usually we'll write as 0 dot 0 dot 0 to 127 dot 255 dot 255 dot 255. This is the last address in a, this is the first address in a class A, and this is the last address in a class A. Class B 128.0.0.0 to 192 dot 255 dot 255. So this is a class B range. So this is a 191. Class C will be 192 dot start from 0. This is end, right? This is the end, and this is the starting. So 192 dot 223 dot 255 dot 255 dot 255. Class D start from again 224 dot 0 dot 0 dot 0 to 239 dot 255 dot 255, and class E will be 240. Start with the 240, ends with the 250. So make sure you have to remember in such a way 0 to 127. You just remember like this: 0 to 127, 128 to 191, 192 to 23, 224 to 239. Like that, you remember last digits. That's all. Okay. So when somebody asks, so you have to make sure you have to remember these things, because even when you go to interviews also, they may ask these questions. This is a very basic questions, like level 1 role, they will ask this kind of questions. Okay. Yeah, any confusions or any questions here? Rajiv, do you have any questions or any confusions? So IP address classes, IP address is IP address v4 is it's a 4 octet representation. 4 octets means, so we will be example 10.0.0.0. So this is the one IP address. So we'll be representing in a 4 octet. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, this one is a 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 octets. Each octet is having a 8 bits. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Like this, we will be representing in a 8 bits. Okay. So 8 bits means 2 power 8. means 256. So start from 0 to end with a 256. Each one is a start from 0 to 256. This is 0 to 256. This is start from, this is 0 to 256. This many combinations of IP addresses we can write. So 0 start from 0 to 0 to 0, end with a 255, 255, 255, 255. So how many classes we can write here? Totally in between 0 to 255, we will be writing as a 5 classes. So, okay, 5 classes. So that is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 to 127, 128, 191, 191, 192 to 23, 224 to 39. So like that we will be classifying the IP address. Okay. Now, so what is a MAC address? So the MAC address is a physical representation of any of the device. Let's say here I can communicate to the computer if this device have a one physical address. It's a physical address. It doesn't change. Okay, it never change. Once if you buy any laptop or computer, this physical address will be the same. Okay, and the IP address is like when you connect to the internet. IP address is like when you connect to the internet, it will be assigned, the IP address will be assigned to your computer every time. So now I can disconnect my computer. So I can use my mobile phone internet. So then my IP address of my computer or my laptop will be changed because the network is changed. So the IP address can be changed at any time, but the physical address of the MAC address will never change. So even if I wanted to communicate other system via LAN cable or Bluetooth, so I can be able to communicate other system as well. Even with my I can connect my I can turn on my Bluetooth, my mobile Bluetooth, and I can send a file to my computer. So there is no, here the communication is happening, but there is no IP address. There is no IP address is required. You just need a physical address of your device, where exactly your device, so that you can be able to communicate. So that is the MAC address. MAC address is a physical representation of a device, and so in order to communicate from host to host. Okay, here the multiple I have in my company, I have a multiple computers. So I don't need an internet to communicate all this host. I don't need an internet to communicate all this host. If this device, let's say, if this device is there in an internet, there in a internet, it is there in internet. So I want to communicate this system, then I have to use an IP address, and then I'll go to the internet, and then I'll communicate. Those cases only IP address will be helpful. Okay. Now let's see one simple scenario. The difference you'll get to know the difference of IP address. Okay. Let's say here one of the guy, here is a server. Okay, and here is the, this is, let's say, some Gmail server. So I want to connect my, so I am here, this is my, I am into some XYZ company. So this is a router switch I have. Under the switch I have a multiple host, multiple devices. Now This is the internet. Okay. Now what happened? So one of my system is trying to access Google. This is, let's say, 192.10.0.1 example. So what happened? So when I'm trying to go to the Gmail server, first it will go to the switch. Okay. Then the switch have the MAC address of this device. So okay, 192.10.0.1, and the MAC address is, just assume it, XYZ. Okay, computer, this is a computer A, this is a computer A, and the IP address is this, and the MAC address is this. So now it going to switch have the MAC address. Now it will go to the router. The router will take this IP, and then, but it is going to the internet, right? It uses a public IP. Okay, router's public IP. So it doesn't show your system IP. It uses a public facing, internet facing IP, and it will go to the internet. And the reply comes from the server. Server also doesn't know your IP address. Server only knows a router IP address. So router IP address is something like 100 dot something, 100 dot x something, 100 or something. So it will go, it will IP, Gmail server will respond, and the reply comes to the router. So the router only knows your device's which IP address. It doesn't know where exactly your system is located. The router will take and will give it to the switch. Hey, I got a response from the Gmail server, and the request that is requested by this host. Okay, this only the router knows only the IP address. It doesn't know the MAC address. Switch will take the router reply. So it is having the only 192.10.0.1, and then it identify. So who is a 192.10.0.1? Okay, who is a 192.10.0.1? Who is? So that identifies based on a MAC address. So switch have all the computers, this computer, MAC address. It maintains the MAC address of every computer. Let's say 10.1 is a XYZ is a MAC address. Okay, 10.2 is a ABC, and 10.3 is a X something D, E, F. So like that, it has a MAC address table. That we can call it as a CAM table. CAM table is the one which have the IP address to MAC address. When the router comes and giving the saying that, hey, this is the reply comes from the server, and this reply belongs to 192.10.0.1. Switch knows that who is the 10.1, and then it passes to exactly that 10.1's MAC address. All right, just think like a postal address. So any of the guy from, so you're in a Bangalore. Okay, so your friend is in a Hyderabad. So he sent one courier. Okay, your friend is there in Hyderabad. He sent a courier. Okay, what happened? That courier will be routing. It comes over in a different paths, right? So just think like they send imagine as it's an internet. It's imagine as a internet. It comes via one network. We can just imagine as a internet. So your address will be, let's say my address will be Narendra, and he's there in Domalur, and he's working in IBM, EGM, and T block, 3rd floor. Okay. Now, so this is my physical identity. Okay, this is my physical identity. So what happened? The postal guy comes. Where the postal guy comes? He will come to Domlur, IBM. He comes to Domlur, IBM, D block, and then he will pass the courier to my company, 3rd floor, receptionist. So the receptionist. Okay. So here, this is like a IP address. This is like a IP address. So where exactly you are there to locate where you are, to locate where you are. My name is like a MAC address. My name is a like a MAC address. So my receptionist will take, okay. So my receptionist will act as a router. So he will collect. He will collect and he will check. So who is Narendra? He will check who is Narendra and then he will pass it to me. Okay, receptionist guy will check and he will pass to me. So here the receptionist guy acts as a router. The same way, just imagine or just think the same communication in a IP and MAC. So MAC is here is my name and IP will be my location. Okay, the same thing. Just imagine in such a way, so that will be easy for you. So when somebody is send information, so the information have the IP address, not a MAC address. Okay, IP address is the location where exactly the device is there. Once you reach the device, then it will be routed to your computer based on a MAC address. Got it? So when you are going to the internet means there is no need of MAC address. So the MAC address will be there, will be involved into the, it comes into the picture when the packet receives to your network. Once your packet receives into your network, then it need a MAC address to identify where you are. Got it? Any questions? So far we have discussed IP address, MAC address, difference of IP address, when we use IP address, when we use a MAC address, and the classes of IP address. So 5 classes we have. So make sure remember these classes. Okay, and what is there? Classes we have discussed. We have a different types of I mean, one I said private IP and public IP. So these are the 2 different types of IP address: private IP and public IP. See, private IP and all will be used by the organizations. So companies inside of the computers. Now my computer, let's see, this is my computer, right? This is I am using, and behind the router, my Wi-Fi router is there. Behind my Wi-Fi router, I am there. So this is a private IP address. And when you see the same my computer IP address in a Google, I'm seeing public IP. This is the public IP address, and this is the private IP address. Okay, same address is same, but it is the outside guys will see my system as this is my system IP address. Outside people, but inside of the people can see that my system is a IP address is this. So my system internal IP will not never visible to any other persons. Okay, because I am behind the router. I am using Wi-Fi router. Behind that I am there. Okay. So why we are using? Because so organization point of view, they cannot use public IP address. So in order to communicate internet, you have to purchase one public IP from the internet service provider. So now I purchased the 192.168. 0.1 means this is the IP address I have purchased from the ISP, ACT IP services I have purchased. Okay, so now we have classes of IP addresses. Sorry, ranges, private IP address and types of IP addresses. We have two different types of IP addresses: private IP and public IPs. So private IP address is assigned by the Internet Assigned Number Authority. So IANA. So IANA, which is the which assign the private IP address ranges. So we have private IP address range will be these things. All these private IP addresses will be used by the organizations only, companies and other stuff. Okay, it starts from 10.0.0.0.2 10.255.255.255. Okay, this is the private IP address range for one range. The second range start from 172.16.0.0.2 to 172.31.255.255. Another one is 192.168.0.0.2 to 192.168.255.250. So these are the private IP address range. Other than, so these all IP address will be used within the organization or internal networks, internal host. Now this is a 192.168, right? 192.168 to 192.168.255.255. This is a private IP address. My system private IP address is range between 192.168 0.140 it is in this range only, right? 192.168. So this is a 0.104. Got it? I'm using, my system is using within this range. Any questions? So other than all the IPs are belongs to public IPs. So exclude this. So after 10.255.255, what is IP address? 11. So it start with the 11 because it start with a 255 and then it start with the number is 11, right? So 11 will be private public IP address. Correct. We have a subnetting concept as well, but so in security field we don't need any subnetting because where the subnetting will be used, especially the networking people, where they want to assign the IP address to, or they want to create a different VLANs. Those cases they will go for a subnetting. So as a security engineer, you have to know, so what is IP address classes and the range, IP address ranges you must have to know, and what is the IP address and what is the MAC address, where exactly the IP address helpful, where exactly the MAC address helpful, and what is their functionalities. Okay. Any questions? Any confusion?
Yeah, every time it's changed, right? Yeah, the IP address every time we connect to the internet, it will be changed, right? Dynamically.
Yeah, it will be changed.
Who will be assigning that change?
So that will be doing by the different protocol called as the DHCP. So the DHCP is responsible for doing these activities. So okay, whenever you try to connect, so the DHCP, I'll discuss that DHCP, how does the DHCP works. But DHCP is a one protocol which is responsible for assigning the IP address to any of the device whenever you connect to the internet. So there will be DHCP server in the local ISP. Okay, that DHCP server will assign an IP address to your computer. So let's say now mine is 104. Now again I disconnected, but it is some time. It will there will be a 24 hours of time till the time you have the same IP address. So now if I disconnect my system and if I connect back to internet, it doesn't change. The IP address will never change. The IP address will not change. Okay.
The DHCP server maintain that. After a 24 hours or 48 hours of time, okay, if you connect back the system, so what happens? Your system IP address changed, and even if your internet provider is changed, now I'm connecting Act to Geo or Airtel, so my IP address will be changed. Okay, I'm not
Both
using.
public and private IP. It will be changing both public and private IPs.
No, if I'm using a router, right now I'm using a router. So router cases, so my system IP address will be private, not a public IP. So when I'm using mobile internet, let's say I'm using a Geo, so I'm directly connecting to the internet, not via router. I'm not connecting, I'm not going via router, right? If I'm using Wi-Fi router, so I'm passing the traffic, I'm going through the Wi-Fi router, so that the Wi-Fi router will protect me, and it doesn't show my system IP address. It shows a router IP address. It is going to the internet. But in case if you connect via Geo, so your IP address will be the public IP address. It shows directly in the command prompt. When you type here the command prompt, you will get a public IP address here. If you connect via Geo or something without a router. Okay. So you have to identify and you have to differentiate the public and private IP addresses when you're doing the security, when you're doing analysis. So you have to know which IP is a private, which IP address is a public IP address. So when you, let's say, this is a private, I don't know whether it is a private or public example case. Okay. So now I'm trying to search this IP. So I'm searching by using a IBM Expose tool or any other whois.com or whatever it is. So I will get, this is the private network. So which is assigned by the Internet Assigned Number Authority. Private network. This is the private network. If I search this IP, I get details of where exactly that IP address, in which location, which country, which city, everything will be captured. So the location is Bangalore, and who is a service provider, everything will be there. So that is the difference between a private and public IP. So we can, the IP address is public IP address means you will be get all the details. Private address means you cannot see any details. Got it. So I'll pass one material for you guys.